Day 718, Wednesday, August 13th. Nehemiah 6 through Nehemiah 7:3. Nehemiah 6:1-7:3 NKJV. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, and that there were no breaks left in it, though at that time I had not hung the doors and the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me harm. So I sent messengers to them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? But they sent me this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. Then Sanballat sent his servant to me as before, the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand. In it was written, It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says, that you and the Jews plan to rebel, therefore, according to these rumors, you are rebuilding the wall, that you may be their king. And you have also appointed prophets to proclaim concerning you at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah. Now these matters will be reported to the king. So come therefore, and let us consult together. Then I sent to him, saying, No such things as you say are being done, but you invent them in your own heart, for they all were trying to make us afraid, saying, Their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Afterward I came to the house of Shemaiah the son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was a secret informer, and he said, Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple, and let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. Indeed, at night they will come to kill you. And I said, Should such a man as I flee? And who is there such as I who would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. Then I perceived that God had not sent him at all, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. For this reason he was hired, that I should be afraid and act that way and sin, so that they might have cause for an evil report, that they might reproach me. My God, remember Tobiah and Sanballat, according to these their works, and the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who would have made me afraid. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul, in 52 days. And it happened, when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was done by our God. Also in those days the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came to them. For many in Judah were pledged to him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Erah, and his son Jehohanan had married the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Berechiah. Also they reported his good deeds before me, and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. Then it was, when the wall was built and I had hung the doors, when the gatekeepers, the singers, and the Levites had been appointed, that I gave the charge of Jerusalem to my brother Hanani, and Hananiah the leader of the citadel, for he was a faithful man and feared God more than many. And I said to them, Do not let the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun is hot, and while they stand guard let them shut and bar the doors, and appoint guards from among the inhabitants of Jerusalem, one at his watch station, and another in front of his own house. Daily Deep Dive, the UCG reading plan states, When the enemies of the Jews learned that Jerusalem's wall was nearly rebuilt, they decided on a new tactic. Through the pretense of a peace conference in the plain of Ono, modern Kafr Ana, about 20 miles northwest of Jerusalem and 10 miles east of Joppa, they would lure Nehemiah out of the city. Their plan was probably to either kidnap or assassinate him, but Nehemiah wasn't fooled and wouldn't take the bait. Verses 1-4. Sanballat then sent a letter to Nehemiah accusing him of planning to rebel against Artaxerxes and set himself up as king, and that he was using lying prophets in his cause. The Samaritan governor implicitly threatens to report this matter to the emperor if Nehemiah will not come out for the meeting. Verses 5-7. Yet Nehemiah still refuses to take the bait. He knew that Sanballat would not dare to make such accusations against him to Artaxerxes, as Nehemiah was a trusted advisor. If anything, this would only have further jeopardized Sanballat's own precarious position. Sanballat's real motive, as Nehemiah realized, was not only a last-ditch effort to scare him into committing to meet, but also that news of his threat would spread so that the Jews, fearing Persian retaliation, would falter in their work on the wall. Verses 89. But that was not the end of the intrigue. In verse 10, Nehemiah meets with a certain Shemaiah the son of Delaiah, probably because he was called to his house. The phrase "who was a secret informer" in the NKJV is rendered by most versions in its literal sense, "who was shut up." What exactly this means here is unclear. Some see it as a reference to a state of prophetic ecstasy. Others view it as a temporary quarantine due to ritual impurity. Others see it as a feigned hiding out at home, to make it look like he was in danger. As such, it would have been simply a manipulative attempt to compromise Nehemiah. The message Shemaiah conveys to Nehemiah is that the governor's life is in danger, and that they should go into the temple to hide. Some suggest that Shemaiah, having access to the temple, was a priest. He was evidently laying claim here to also being a prophet, that his message was a prophecy from God. Compare verse 12. Nehemiah rejects Shemaiah's counsel for two reasons. First, to run and hide would be cowardly. He was the governor and, as a leader among God's people, was supposed to set a brave and faithful example among them. Second, this would have been a sin, as Nehemiah was not a priest. While it would have been legitimate to propose taking refuge in the temple area at the altar, the Mosaic law forbade non-priests from going into the temple, building itself on threat of death. See Numbers 18:1-7. God had punished the Jewish king Uzziah with leprosy for presuming to enter the sanctuary in an attempt to offer incense. 2 Chronicles 26:16-21. In considering Shemaiah's words, Nehemiah realized that he was a false prophet since he had spoken against the law of God. See Isaiah 8:20. The governor further realized that this must have been part of the enemy's scheming. Sanballat's letter had accused Nehemiah of using false prophets, but in reality it was the other side that was now employing such methods in an effort to discredit him. Despite the prominence of Sanballat's letter, however, Tobiah is mentioned first in verse 12, probably because he was evidently friendly with a number of the priests and so had likely achieved this particular inroad with Shemaiah. Compare verses 18-19, Nehemiah 13:7-9. In verses 18-19 of chapter 6, we also learn that Tobiah had written his own share of letters in an attempt to scare Nehemiah. In verse 14, Nehemiah also mentioned a certain prophetess, Noadiah, and other unnamed prophets who were part of the enemy conspiracy. Exactly what role they played is unstated. Perhaps they are the ones who had directed him to meet with Shemaiah. The exchange of numerous letters, threats of public embarrassment and conspiracy remind of modern political intrigue that employs legal maneuvers in the press to try to force a political outcome. Then, as now, human nature and politics worked hand in hand. The wall was at last completed. 52 days, a week shy of 2 months, after the reconstruction under Nehemiah commenced. Verse 15. And thus the wall was built again even in troublesome times, just as had been foretold in Daniel 9:25. It was now the 25th day of Elul, only 5 days prior to the Feast of Trumpets. When the Jews' enemies heard of the astounding achievement and realized that all of their plotting had come to nothing, they were completely demoralized. Seeing this as the work of Judah's God, verse 16. Once the city was secure, Nehemiah set about the even more important task of reorganizing the government and effecting a sorely needed spiritual and moral reformation. He first appointed doorkeepers, singers, and other Levitical personnel, and designated his brother Hanani as mayor of the city. 7:1-2. Eugene Merrill, Kingdom of Priests, p. 511. This was the same Hanani who reported to Nehemiah regarding Jerusalem's plight in 1:1-3. Hanani is the shortened form of Hananiah. Yahweh is gracious. The Elephantine papyri mention a Hananiah who was the head of Jewish affairs in Jerusalem. Many scholars believe that this Hananiah can be identified with Nehemiah's brother and assume that he succeeded Nehemiah. See 427. Expositors, note on 1:2. The Hananiah of these documents could conceivably be the Hananiah that Nehemiah placed over the Jerusalem citadel, Nehemiah 7:2, if Nehemiah's brother had died. But Nehemiah's brother seems the likelier person referred to. We will see more of Nehemiah's reformation in the next few chapters. This would be the crucial part of his work, for while walls were needed, they were not an end in themselves. Their whole purpose was to safeguard a vital interest: the people with whom God was working and the worship system he gave them. God's plan does not center on walls and buildings. It is ever and always about people. End.